Hey everybody, and welcome to Today's Students, Tomorrow's Talent. I'm your host, Dakota Palicki, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. If you've been a regular listener of the show, you know we often talk about today's students. It's even in our title. By talking about today's students, we're trying to make sure that you, our listener, has the facts and information you need to understand that college students today are not those of 20 years ago or even more. In past shows, we've explored how college students today are more racially diverse. Over a third of college students are over the age of 25, and over 2/3 work while they're going to school, 40% of which work full-time. We emphasize these points and bring you stories and ideas from the field to help inspire and drive change across the country so that we might help millions of people, families, and communities prosper. On today's show, we're taking another deep dive at an important identity and facet of today's students. Nearly 1 in 4 students enrolled in college today has children of their own or care for other dependents. These student parents are juggling classes, homework and studying, working to support their families, all while striving to be the best parent they can be. And no two student parents are alike. Some are traditional age students who had children while they were young, and despite the challenges of being a young parent in our country today, they persisted in their pursuits for higher education. Other are older adults above the age of 25 who are enrolled in education or training program after realizing they need new skills and knowledge to keep up with the changing workforce. No matter their circumstances, parenting students face tremendous odds as they seek to earn credentials in a system that is built for the student of yesterday. Our guest today will help us explore what these challenges are, identify opportunities and ideas on how to support student parents, and share some policies and programs that are proving successful in supporting students whatever their circumstance. Later in the show, we'll go to Shasta County, California, a rural community that has found innovative ways to support parenting students who face the challenges of everyday life. There, we're going to hear from a community college leader who is running an award-winning program designed to meet these demands, and from a parenting student who graduated and returned to the program as a success facilitator. But first, we begin today's conversation with Nicole Lynn Lewis, founder and CEO of Generation Hope. Nicole is a national leader in driving the conversation about supporting parenting students, a recipient of the inaugural Black Voices for Black Justice Award, and is a regular contributor to CNN, NBC, The Washington Post, and The Atlantic. More than being a thought leader, Nicole walks the walk by providing direct support to student parents. Before she founded Generation Hope, Nicole was a parenting student herself while she pursued her bachelor's degree at the College of William and Mary. Her new book, Pregnant Girl, released this spring, is a memoir that discusses her journey and presents the possibility of a different future for young mothers, one of success and mobility and stability. Nicole, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, I've just been, I've had a chance to dig into your work and, read some of your writing. And of course, I just bought your book and I'm excited to read it in full. And I just want to say, it's a real pleasure, for me personally, there's so many times where I found myself nodding and agreeing with you. My own family kind of, struggled with some challenges, around having some children in our family while we were very young. And, I definitely found myself, having some common experiences. But, that said, for every moment I was kind of agreeing and nodding my head with you, there were an equal number of moments where, and realizations where I realized how different our experiences are. And it's just a great reminder that we all need to learn from each other's experiences and that everyone's circumstance is different, and that we need to set up our systems in a way to respond to all different kinds of people's circumstances. And so thank you for sharing your story in your writing and of course with you today. And I know our listeners are going to learn a whole lot from you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's always amazing to me when I go and talk to people, how many people have a connection to something in the book or, to teen pregnancy. I think it's touched more people's lives than we talk about. So I'm excited to kind of dive in today.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you don't mind, I'd love to kind of start with your personal journey. It's such a compelling story, and certainly is very clearly a driving force for the great work that you're doing today at the individual and systems level. So let's go back to your years in high school. I'd love to meet the Nicole from high school. Before baby Narissa was involved, or even in your mind, what was it like? What was high school like for you?
I was kind of one of those students who was involved in everything you can think of. I was editor for the newspaper. I was president of the French Honor Society. I was writing for our regional newspaper, the Virginian Pilot. I was always after school singing in a choir, doing something. So very, very much involved. I was also really devoted to my studies. I was an honor roll student. My parents had raised both my sister and I to know that college was the next step after high school. So everything I did academically was to prepare myself for going to college. And so I was taking AP classes and honor roll student, like I said. And people just knew me as someone who was college bound. And I loved school. I loved writing. I loved school. I had a very clear sense of what I was going to do with my life. I was going to be a writer, a journalist, and travel the world and tell kind of the unknown stories that the world needed to hear and read about. And so my path, as far as I was concerned, was very clear, and I was on my way to going to college.
So when did you find out you were pregnant?
I found out I was pregnant my senior year of high school. And in fact, I had just been accepted into several different colleges when I discovered my pregnancy. So the timing, obviously was devastating. It was really hard for me personally, for my family, for my parents. And it was really difficult to see how I was going to be able to go to college and be a mom at the same time. There was no one in my, school, in my community, my circle of friends who had ever, gone to college as a young mother. Most of the young women that I knew in that situation disappeared, or they didn't go to college. They continued to work in retail or food service, those kind of jobs. And so I didn't have a role model to say, well, if so-and-so can do it, I can do it. And so it was really hard discovering my pregnancy and trying to figure out a way to make it to college.
I mean, that's got to be, you said there, most of the folks around you disappeared. I mean, that has to be kind of terrifying and isolating.
Yeah, I mean, when we think about it, and even my mom, I talk in Pregnant Girl about my mom, having a friend when she was in high school. She went to an all-girls Catholic school. And, basically the answer to the problem of a teen pregnancy at that time was to send the young woman away to, a house for unwed mothers or something like that, and to make her and the baby disappear. And so in many ways that still happens today, where you just don't see that young woman anymore in school, or she gets sent to another school. And so it was really scary to think of, what was going to happen to me and how I was going to be able to stay the course when, as you said, so many of the people that I knew did disappear in that situation.
Mm. So you decided to put your college plans on hold, but unlike what we know is so often true in kind of the trend data that we have, you ended up persisting and your determination, and you were unrelenting in your goals, and you ended up going to school the following year. Why do you think you kind of buck that trend? I mean, certainly it's very clear that you're a driven person, but I have to imagine there's more than that.
Yeah, I definitely think, let me just say, I can be pretty bullheaded and determined, and I still have that quality today. But I think the advantage that I had coming into this situation was that I was raised really with the preparation for college all my life. Both my parents were college educated. I grew up in a middle class 2-parent home where education was very, very much emphasized, and not just for the economic return of a college degree, but for the experience of kind of finding out who you are and finding your purpose in the world. Those are huge advantages that I came into this with. So that really aided me in saying, you know what, I have this pregnancy. I have no idea how I'm going to make this all work, but I have to go to college. And I knew even then, as a teenager, that education was probably the best way for me to be able to provide for my child. And so that was a real driving force for me. I knew the alternative in terms of the money I would be able to make, if I didn't have a college degree. And I really wanted my daughter to have everything that, I felt that she deserved, and a good chance at her own success. So those things all together, I think, really kind of propelled me forward. But I will say, every day it was really difficult to see how I was going to make it all possible. When I found out I had been accepted into the College of William and Mary, I was 8 months pregnant. I was hungry and living day to day in a Motel 6. So there wasn't any kind of moment leading up to going to college, and even throughout college where it was a sure thing, or anything was guaranteed.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that it's interesting to hear you kind of launch off from this perspective of saying, you're driven, you're motivated, you want to make sure that you are pursuing not only your own education for economic reasons, but also for the reasons that your parents and your family instilled in you, and also want to, make sure your daughter has a role model in yourself, and that in supporting her development. You find yourself on the campus of William and Mary, and you're going to this historic institution, daughter in tow with you, and we were chatting. Our good friend NPR reporter Alyssa Nadworthy and you had chatted, and as I was reading through that article, something you said really stuck out to me, which is you said, I felt more like the girl with a baby than I did a college student. What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I didn't obviously have a traditional college experience. My experience was kind of opposite of what we think about when you hear the word college student or the words college student. I was living off campus my freshman year. I was commuting 150 miles to get to campus and to daycare for my daughter each day. I was pumping in between classes. And certainly it's hard to find lactation rooms open to students now on college campuses, but 20 years ago, that was pretty impossible. So I was pumping in the bathroom, wherever I could. I did not have money. I mean, I did not have money to sometimes buy my textbooks, sometimes provide diapers for my daughter. And by sophomore year, I was able to move into a family housing unit on campus that was not intended for me as an undergrad at William and Mary. It was really intended for adjunct professors, but I found that loophole, and really, again, that bullheadedness kicked in, and I advocated for myself. And so what ended up happening was my daughter, really essentially grew up on a college campus once I moved into that family housing unit. And so people would see me. I would be walking to class sometimes, or walking to drop her off at daycare on campus, or I would be heading to the post office on campus to get our mail. And people knew me as the girl with the baby, because that was a rarity, at William and Mary. And so that was my identity. I was much more a mother than I felt a college student. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was an anomaly there. There weren't other parenting students raising their children on campus, or, bringing their kids on campus, where I was able to feel like I was a part of a community. I very much felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb, not only because I was parenting, but also, at William and Mary, I was one of very, very few Black students. So I had a lot of things happening in my situation all at once that made me feel less like I belonged in that community, and more of kind of an outlier.
Yeah, I want to stick with that identity thread here for a second, because the point you just landed on is really critical, where suddenly multiple layers of our identities intersect in our context. But before I do that, I know you're also very involved in the Hope Center, and they came out with a report in 2020 that I'm looking at here. They surveyed 171 two-year institutions, 56 four-year institutions, and they found that over 23,000 student parents have responded. And just ticking off some of the similar challenges that you were feeling, I think it's important to remind our folks that while you were experiencing this individually, you're certainly not alone today as we think about the national landscape. 53% of these parenting students that were surveyed were having difficulty finding food in the past 30 days at the point the survey was conducted. 17% of them were homeless in the prior year. And certainly childcare is one of the big barriers, with most, about half of the parents paying more than $100 a week in childcare expenses alone. Most of them, 3/4 of them, finding that very unaffordable. So, again, I think it's important to remind ourselves that while each context is different and each story is different, the issue is much bigger than just an individual story.
Yeah, and basic needs is a huge issue for so many college students, and I love the work of the Hope Center and Sarah Goldrick-Robb and her team, because this is a story that needs to be told. And when we look at parenting students in particular, all of those basic needs are exacerbated by the fact that you're a caregiver. So, I often tell people, if you're a parent and you are food insecure, you're going to feed your child before you feed yourself. And that was certainly the case for me. Whatever food that I did have, it always went to my daughter. I wanted to make sure that she ate, that she was okay, she had a roof over her head. And so there were days where I was in class hungry or subsisting off of a granola bar for, an hour, a 24-hour period, to make sure that she had what she needed. And obviously the costs of going to college are going to be higher for a parenting student. You can't live on campus. I was in a rare situation where I had a family housing apartment that I could access, but that's not the case at the vast majority of institutions. So you're having to put a roof over your head and your child's head. You have childcare costs. So all of those basic needs that we see for so many college students who aren't parenting, they are just heightened by the fact that you are a caregiver. So it's something that, I'm hoping that Sarah and her team continue to push this out and make sure that the student parent story is a part of this larger story.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do link to that report in our show notes. So, a lot of really good information in there. I kind of want to get back to where we had dropped off for a second. You landed on this kind of, multi-sectional identity. You're a college student. At times, though, you're really feeling like, you're the girl with a kid. But then you also told us, you're also one of very few Black students at the College of William & Mary. And on top of that, you're a Black mother raising a Black daughter. Bring us into, how that might have impacted you, the kind of things that you might have been feeling and thinking about on a daily basis, trying to live with this kind of, multiple identity and show up like yourself in an authentic way in a very different context.
Well, I think I talk about it being a scarlet letter. When you're a teen mother, you kind of have a scarlet letter. When you're pregnant, obviously, it's hard to hide that pregnancy. And then when you have a child, I knew that people looked at me and said, "Oh, you look too young to have a child." So being a mother was not something that I could hide. I felt people's scrutiny and judgment everywhere I went. On campus, I felt it, where people were very much wondering what I was doing there. Did I belong there? When I was in the grocery store with my daughter and she's crying for some candy, knowing people are looking at us and judging me about my situation, assuming the worst about me, that I'm not in college or that I'm not ambitious, or, all of the things that are wrapped up in the stereotypes that people have about teen mothers. And then also being a Black student at a predominantly white institution. William & Mary is one of our early colonial colleges in this country. And these colleges really kind of baked in the DNA for the higher ed system that we know today. And these colleges were, William & Mary, you could bring your slave with you to campus. When we think about, the early kind of traditions of this school, like many of those colonial colleges. So the higher ed system, was not catering to me or the needs that I had as a young Black mother. It continues to not do that today. And I think also, my husband, I met my husband my junior year of college. He was a college football player at William & Mary. And we've talked a lot about the assumptions that people made about his, whether or not he had earned his place on campus as a Black athlete, or was he just there because of the fact that he could play football. So it is really tough to ignore the assumptions, the stereotypes that are out there as a Black student. but particularly as a Black mother, all of those things kind of intersecting at the same time. And then, the things of being a low income student, I couldn't afford many of the things that my peers could afford. Sometimes fees for labs were difficult for me. Sometimes I didn't have textbooks for class. I couldn't afford the menu plan, the meal plan. So I never ate at the dining halls. So all of those things, kind of intersecting at the same time that we see today with student parents, millions of student parents across the country, the intersectionality of this group and all of these student groups that we often talk about, but we don't talk about, all of them coming together in this population.
And obviously, your experiences led you to found Generation Hope, to try to tackle these challenges both at the individual level, helping individuals, and then also at the kind of more system level. Tell us a little bit more about your organization and the work it does.
Yeah, so I graduated from William & Mary and just had this tremendous feeling of wanting to give back and wanting to, I knew my story was rare. I don't think I knew how rare at the time. Less than 2% of teen moms get a degree before age 30, so very rare. And I knew that it was possible for more young parents to get their degrees, but they just needed the resources and the support to get there. And so, I moved up to the DC area, and I was looking for a nonprofit that was dedicated to this issue of parenting students and young parents in particular, completing their post-secondary education. None existed in the DC region, very, very few across the country. And I thought, you know what, I can do something about this. I have the lived experience. I have a sense of what is needed, what supports could really move the needle for this population. And I felt like, I could bring all of that together. I'd been working in the nonprofit field for a couple of years by that time, and said, let me bring this all together and start an organization that needs to exist in the world. And that's really what Generation Hope came out of, was just a real desire to fill a gap and to see more young parents and parenting students walk across the graduation stage. And it's just been amazing. We started in 2010 in my husband's man cave, very, very humble beginnings. And now it's been amazing. We are now a team of 20 plus amazing team members. And, we're doing the work locally with teen moms and dads in the DC metro region, but now we're doing work nationally to advocate for the needs of parenting students all across the country. And it's just been an honor to kind of watch it grow.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like one of the most productive things to ever come out of a man cave. So congratulations. Congratulations to you.
He was very happy when we got our first office. Let me just say that.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you in one of your interviews that I read in advance of this, you said, listen, when we talk to colleges, they say, oh, sure, we have an emergency fund, but it takes 6 weeks of time. And, firsthand, as well as from listening to the scholars that Generation Hope serves, that 6 weeks is a world of difference. So you're clearly working to make sure, parenting students in your area are better supported through emergency funds, through a lot of other ways. But also I'm curious about the uptick and uptake of how many higher ed systems and other folks are starting to listen to you now. And do you find that the field is a little bit more welcoming and understanding and malleable, or do we still have a lot of work to do to get to that spot?
Well, I think, compared to 20 years ago when I was in college, the kind of phrase student parent or parenting college students just wasn't really talked about. It wasn't a national conversation. I'm encouraged by the fact that today it is a national conversation. There's a hashtag, people are starting to talk about it. With that said, there's a lot of work that we have to do, because I talk to people in higher ed every day and talk to them about the fact that 1 in 5 undergraduate students is parenting. It's nearly half of all Black female undergraduates across the country are parenting. Black student parents are at the epicenter of the student loan crisis, the student debt crisis that we're talking about. And people are their jaws are on the floor. And these are people working in higher ed as professors, as administrators, as policymakers, as activists who really student parents are not on their radar. We call this population an invisible population for this reason. So it's good to see that there's been movement. We have funders, a wonderful, Annie E. Casey. We have Imaginable Futures, so many wonderful foundation partners that are starting to really invest in this work. But we have a long way to go because of the fact that most colleges are not tracking the parenting status of their students. So most colleges and institutions are kind of flying blind in terms of, who this population is on their campus, what they need, what, ways that they can help them to make it to the graduation stage. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm encouraged by the progress that's being made, but I'm kind of ready, and my team and I are geared up and ready to move it even farther along.
Yeah, I mean, I so appreciate that because, sometimes an institution we'll work with in our kind of daily work, we'll say, hey, we want to do more for, students who have childcare needs. And that's their vector into it. Oh, we'll set up a daycare. But that might not be the right solution. That's certainly not a comprehensive solution. And so, there's an opportunity for us to think about, how to really make the system work better and where the drivers are coming in, whether inside or outside. And, I have to imagine that you see Generation Hope's role in this broader ecosystem as one of those solution sets. And so as you're going around and talking to folks around the country, I mean, if they want to start somewhere, is the answer to find more organizations like Generation Hope? Is the answer to get institutions to show up a bit more and change what they're doing? Is it something in the government? Is it everything? Where do we begin?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited because Generation Hope is now helping people to answer that question. So we've launched a technical assistance program called Family U. And that program is really about helping people think through their student parent supports, whether they're an institution, whether they're a higher ed entity, kind of an association. It also includes a cohort experience, a 2-year cohort experience for colleges and universities that really want to enhance and refine their student parent supports. And we just launched our first inaugural cohort this summer. We're so excited. We have 4 amazing institutions that are a part of that cohort. But I think, if you're an institution, the very first place is starting with data. We know that data drives action. And we want to see more colleges and universities starting to track parenting status of their students. And there are different ways to get that started from, looking at FAFSA and, trying to at least start there. We know there are many students that don't complete FAFSA, so that's not a comprehensive, way of capturing parenting status, but it's a starting point. We also see schools that are doing intake surveys, all the way up to schools that require a parenting status check when you go to register for classes. So we want to see institutions at least getting this work started around data collection. That's really important. And I think that will really make the conversations with policymakers, with folks in the community, even internal to your institution, really make these conversations easier, because it's a lot easier to say, well, we're not going to invest in, these supports for a population that we don't really know if it's a big population on our campus or how many of our students are actually caregivers. So we have to start with data. I think that's critical. But I think to your point, I talk to a lot of people and they say, oh, we have a childcare center on campus. We've kind of checked the box for student parents. And, we're encouraging institutions and practitioners and policymakers to really look at every single kind of function of an institution, every department through the lens of student parents and figuring out, are they being inclusive or exclusive? And, that looks like in your marketing materials as an institution, do you include photos of students with children? So that if I am a prospective student, I can see myself at your college or university. I know that I'm welcome there. I remember serving on a panel with some of our scholars at an event. And one of our scholars said that she walked into her advisor's office. she saw toys on his desk and immediately knew that he would be embracing of the fact that she was a parent. Often if you're a student parent, you don't disclose the fact that you have a child or that you're a caregiver because you're afraid of kind of punitive responses to that. So there are so many things, from the big investments to the low lift, kind of low hanging fruit things that really don't require any investment, but are critical and important, that need to happen all across the board at an institution. And lastly, I'll just say quickly that these kind of enhancements not only benefit parenting students, but they benefit all students. Having after hours options for your financial aid offices, those are things that, not only is that really helpful to parenting students, but it's helpful to students that have different schedules, who are working, who have long commutes to campus and can't get to an office by that 5 p.m. closing time. And so we're encouraging that institutions and folks really look at the needs of student parents, but also understand that those are supports that can enhance an entire community. They're not singularly focused on this population.
Well, you've spent so much time with us. Before I leave you, though, I want to close out the chapter of your story, because I know our listeners are probably curious. You eventually earned your bachelor's degree from William and Mary. You got a master's degree from George Mason. And of course, I'm going to have to refer to my notes to all of your accolades here for a second, so forgive me. You have your own successful organization, Generation Hope, that's just launching a brand new TA program, which I hope a lot of people check out. You're on the board of trustees at Trinity Washington University. You're honored with the inaugural Black Voices and Black Justice Award, among so many others. You're a CNN hero. What message do you think it sends to your own children, to your daughter, and maybe to others who find themselves standing in your shoes from some years ago?
Wow, well, that's a great question. I hope that it sends a message to anyone who questions whether they belong, in a space, whether they belong in a college campus or in a C-suite or, anywhere. If they question because of who they are, because of their lived experiences, their backgrounds, because they don't quite fit the traditional mold of whatever blank, right? CEO, student, award winner, what have you, that you do belong. I used to question whether I belonged at William and Mary. I used to question whether I belonged in a CEO seat at the table, sometimes just having a seat at the table. And, I don't question that anymore, because I think my story proves that all of us, no matter what we've been through, what we've experienced, how different our story may be, how many challenges we're up against, we belong in these spaces and we enrich these spaces. And so I hope that's the message that my story leaves with people.
Well, Nicole Lynn Lewis, CEO and founder of Generation Hope, author of Pregnant Girl, thank you so much for joining us today, spending some time and sharing your story and insight with us. And I wish you all the very best of luck, and I hope everyone listening goes and checks out your organization. You guys are doing amazing work, and thank you.
Thank you, Dakota. It's been a pleasure.
Our next guests bring us out to the West Coast, to Shasta County, California, where several programs and policies have been put in place to support parenting students. Shasta College has been running award-winning programs that help adults and other students in their vast region earn the credentials they need to succeed in today's labor market. Today, we're going to hear about their Accelerated College Education Program. ACE, as it's known, uses a variety of student success strategies to allow students to earn a certificate in 9 months or an associate's degree in 24 months or less. Buffy Tanner is the Interim Associate Dean for Student Services at Shasta College, where she plays a key role in the design and implementation of the ACE program. Also joining us is Janet Hubbard, a student success facilitator at Shasta College and a program graduate herself. Buffy and Janet, thanks so much for joining me today. And Buffy, I'm really just eager to jump right in with you. Can you just bring us into the kind of environment at Shasta College? What is the profile of student that the college serves and that you find in the ACE program?
Absolutely. Well, to start, it really helps to get a sense of where we are geographically. So Shasta College is the only public institution of higher education in and we serve a 3-county region. We're located in Redding, California, which is a small city smack dab between Sacramento and the Oregon border. So we're in far northern California, and we're surrounded by rural and literally frontier areas comprising about 10,000 square miles. So due to our actual geography and the fact that we're the only public institution, Shasta College is sort of by default the college of choice for graduating high school seniors. We also have an incredibly robust concurrent and dual enrollment program with our high schools for current high school students. And then because we are a community college and we accept the top 100% of students in our area, we are the local option for students of any age to get new skills, to change careers, retool in their current career, or to finish a program that they started early in their life. And the majority of our students are working at least part-time. And that was true before the pandemic. Our industry sectors, a lot depend on retail and tourism. And so a lot of jobs have been hard hit because of the pandemic. Our typical enrollment is usually between 11,000 and 12,000 students with an average full-time equivalency of about 6,500. So we have a lot of part-time students, and about half of our students are eligible for federal Pell Grant. So we have a lot of low-income students. It's not a wealthy area in Shasta, Trinity, and Tehama counties. The pandemic has resulted in some enrollment declines, as it has for almost all California community colleges. So that's sort of a snapshot of where we are and who we're serving.
Yeah, well, and I know that we've been longtime partners, and I've known you all for a while. And even in addition to the pandemic, the amount of times you have to support families and regions that are dealing with what seems like constant wildfires there, have to really change the way that you all do your work to make sure that you're supporting people the best way you can. One of the things that we're here to talk about today is that you did develop this accelerated college education program, ACE, which is really designed to better support the students that you serve. Can you just give us a sense of what the ACE program is and what it consists of?
Sure. So back in 2014-15, working with the Lumina Foundation, we discovered that fully 30% of our adults over the age of 25 had some college but no degree. So the national average is 20%. We recognized that we had a lot of folks out there who were either not able to get jobs that were available in the community, or were in jobs but they couldn't move forward in their careers because they were missing either that certificate or missing that associate's degree, or couldn't move forward on their path to a bachelor's degree. So we initially created ACE as a way for those students to come back to college to finish their studies without having to choose between going to college, working their job, and or supporting their family. And the way that we did it was in creating the structure for the ACE program. So to start with, ACE coursework is all compressed into 8-week blocks, rather than the traditional concepts of students taking 4 or 5 full-length semester classes in one term, which can be, for a working parent in particular, they're already juggling a lot, and then here, let's throw 4 or 5 more balls at you. Which is just mean, right? So having the coursework compressed into 8-week blocks enables students to take 2 classes each block, which means that they can take 4 classes in a semester, but only focus on 2 at a time. But this means that they're full-time for financial aid purposes, and they're full-time for making time to degree, and fewer balls to juggle, right? The other piece of it is that the scheduling of the classes is consistent. Originally, when we started the program back in 2016, half of the classes were fully online, and then the other half were consistently Tuesday, Thursday in the evenings from 6 to 9 p.m. This allowed students, again, who were working, students with kids, to know that, okay, I know I need to keep clear Tuesday, Thursday evenings, period. And they could schedule the rest of their lives around that. Due to a lot of different factors, which included primarily feedback from the students, we ended up shifting in about 2018-19 to fully online coursework, which was really a blessing in disguise, because when the pandemic hit, all of our students were already used to fully online coursework, as were our instructors. So it was one less shift for our students in the ACE program to deal with. The other, another piece is that we've made sure to map out all of the coursework that's required for the particular pathways in our program. So any degree, any certificate, we have laid out all of the major coursework, all of the GE, all of the electives within that, for a degree, 24-month period, and that ensures that the students can get the coursework when they need to get the coursework, and they don't have to wonder, can I get through 90% of this program, but then there's that one class that I have to take on campus during the day. Nope, we make sure that everything is available to them. And because of the way the coursework is sequenced, students often end up taking their coursework with the same group of students from block to block and term to term. And so cohorts form and peer networking happens. And so supports come from other students within the program. And then lastly, I think one of the most important features of the program is case management. Janet Hubbard is our student services facilitator, and she is the point person for the students in the program. It doesn't matter what question they have, they know they can go to Janet, ask the question, and she'll either have the answer or she'll know exactly who to ask on campus to get the answer. And that is a huge time saver for the students and streamlining for them. Additionally, Janet does a lot of proactive monitoring of the students, what coursework they're taking, are they still enrolled in their classes, did they get enrolled in their classes? And so there are interventions that take place to make sure that students can't fall through the cracks. And if they do end up just without communicating to us and dropping all their classes, Janet runs a report, can see they dropped all their classes and is on the phone with them saying, hey, what's going on? Can we help? How do we get you back in school? So that case management, I think, is a critical piece.
I mean, clearly it feels like you've thought about everything, and I really appreciate that. It's not enough to just do, one thing. You have to do all things. It's not one thing, it's a systems thing. And clearly you're doing the kind of back office work of making sure things are mapping onto each other, that the student is always on a journey, providing that case, the kind of, the casework through Janet and through others, as well as making sure people have the kind of predictability they need. Janet, I want to bring you into the conversation because, as Buffy just shared, you are one of the student success facilitators for the ACE program. But before we even talk about that role, I understand that you yourself are a graduate of the program. What was your experience going through the ACE program?
So my experience was amazing. It was wonderful. I came into Shasta College. I'm a working adult. I have 4 children. I was a stay-at-home mom, but I was working kind of stay-at-home mom, but yet also having a full-time job, which was really difficult for me. And I decided I wanted to finish my degree. I went to college right out of high school. I went into the UC system, and not to say anything negative about the UC system. It's great. It's fantastic for those students that can make it through, but I didn't have any support. And coming from a family with no higher education, it was really difficult for me to navigate the system. So I didn't do very well and I dropped out. And I did have some units, and then I had attempted it again after I got married. I went to another university and tried schooling again, and the support piece was just not there for me. So again, I dropped out. So by the time I made it to Shasta College, it was kind of my 3rd attempt. I was either going to make it or this was it. I'm not going any further. And luckily, I went to go see a counselor, and they recommended I speak to Buffy Tanner, this wonderful person in this other building. And so I did. I went to go see her, and Buffy, she took me in and she guided me. They set me up with the ACE counselor, the dedicated ACE counselor. They provided my coursework. They laid everything out for me. And from the moment I started the program, I was in contact with them almost on a weekly basis, The support was amazing. They were checking up on me, making sure I had the books I needed for the class, making sure I had my financial aid. Any questions I had, they were there. It was having that support that really got me through the classes. And I had priority registration, so I never had to worry about, oh, am I going to be able to get into this class? No, my classes were set. We have a lending library. So I was able to also reduce the amount of money I was spending on books, which, if you're a working adult trying to manage bills, you have children, that cost of that book can sometimes be the one thing that prevents you from going back to school. If you can't afford those textbooks, you can't, there's no way you're going to pass the class. So for me, it was one of the best experience, and I'm really glad I decided to go back and go and see Buffy, and really meet with her and go. Like I said, it was the best experience, and I can't say I work for the program now, but it's because I went through the program that I'm so passionate about what we do to help other students get their degree.
Yeah, what more of a vote of confidence than to, go back and work for the program clearly. Mm-hmm. And, you said some things, a lot of things in there. One is, you were a mother of 4. Mm-hmm. You're staying home, but also working full time. And I think prior to COVID, there were probably some people that had a hard time empathizing with that. But now, as many parents who typically went into the office and are now working from home, now with their children who are also working from home, probably have a better understanding of, what that looks like on a daily basis. You also talked about that, listen, there are other things. I had priority registration. I didn't have to worry about that. I had a lending library. Mm-hmm. That helped me there. I got to imagine that now as a student success coach, you have a really good front row seat to other challenges that students' parents are facing, and in particular, ones that, you might have felt alone when you were going through the program, and that, I'm probably the only one with this problem. And now you're realizing that, wait, this is actually very common. What's on that list of things that are all too common that we need to know about?
Most of the students feel, because of our age, we are, originally when you talk about adult education, it always has like a negative tone to it. And so there was a lot of reservation on my part, a lot of, lack of confidence to think, can I really compete? You think of it as competing with younger students, going into these classes, and do I really have the ability? Am I really not necessarily intelligent, but smart enough? Can I make it through these classes that are originally not meant for non-traditional students? And that's what I see a lot more now that I'm in the program, that I wasn't alone. I see these students coming in and they struggle a little bit with the class, and they reach out to me and they're like, I don't think I can do this. It's just, some of the discussions in the class I don't understand, or, I just don't feel like I can connect with these students. Sometimes because our classes are open to non-A students as well. And knowing that, because I went through it, I can say, I understand. You are good enough to be in this class. You are good enough to go back to school and get your degree. It doesn't matter. I was in your shoes up until a couple of months ago. I was still going to school, and you can do it. It doesn't matter who else is in the class. It's not about them. It's about you. It's about what you want to accomplish through your education, and you can do it. It is difficult. There's some classes that made me cry, I will admit. And I share that with other students, and we all know what classes those are. So it's a true connection to let them know it's just about fitting in, because that's a huge thing right now in our society is, fitting in with the rest of the crowd. And sometimes as adult learners, we don't feel like we stand on the same platform.
And, one of the things I hear you saying here is that even the best structured program that provides every kind of support possible, there is still a need to holistically support students, in particular with their identity. And certainly, you as a student success facilitator being a key part of that equation are advantaged to be able to say, listen, I have it in your shoes. I know what it's like. Buffy, I kind of want to come to you for this, because I think there are a lot of colleges and institutions that are trying to serve student parents better. And, too often they go about it program by program. They'll set up a childcare option, or provide more coaching, or maybe a dedicated coach, or clean up an academic map. But it's clear to me that ACE went well beyond that. You really worked through the back of the house and the front of the house kind of systems. You have student success facilitators that have lived experience of this. But what does it really take for an institution to get to that level of comprehensiveness? Because I think that's where they struggle. There might be a champion to build that childcare center, but that might be the limit of their ability. What did it take for your entire institution to really reshape the way it works to better support not only student parents, but also other people that need this kind of support in their lives?
So fundamentally, it really took our administration saying this is a priority and this is a commitment. And so that came from the president of our college, and that came from the VP of instruction of our college, as well as the VP of student services. And so it was the support at that level to say, we are going to make this work for our adult working students, and to putting some resources behind it. So it wasn't something that a staff member was told, oh, you're already working full time, now you need to figure out how to make this happen. Carve out an hour a week to figure it out, kind of thing. It was a part-time consultant was hired initially to work with the VP of instruction to develop the concept of the program and to create the original schedule and to identify the original faculty that were involved. And then that's the other piece that's really critical, is finding faculty who, number one, were willing to teach compressed classes, because even though we've taught summer school for forever, which are compressed classes, the idea of teaching compressed classes within a semester was just that much of a novel concept that some faculty were like, I don't know about that. But other faculty said, oh no, I'd be happy to do that. I'm interested. And we had some faculty and we had some deans who they themselves were sort of late bloomers educationally, and they had come back to school as adults and gone through college while they were working. And so they truly understood what our students were dealing with. So that the commitment on that level, and to really place the resources behind staffing the program, made a world of difference. But also, we had some of those same ideas in terms of, oh, okay, we've got working parents, they've got kids, what is it that we need? And the first thought was childcare. And so it was, how are we going to work out childcare for these evening classes? And when we had the first informational meeting, the students said, no, we can deal with that. We just need to know consistently when classes are going to be, and we will make it work. Working parents are used to making things work, but the traditional college experience of, oh, you're going to have a class on Mondays and Wednesdays from 8 to 9, and then you're going to have a class on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4, and then you're going to have a class, on Monday, Wednesday nights that meets from 6 to 10. And then it's going to change in the next semester. That's ridiculous for working adults to try to plan their lives around that. So the consistency of the scheduling, the comprehensive build out of the programs, and then the individualized customization of those plans, so that working adults with kids could see, I'm starting here and it's going to take me X number of semesters to finish. I can see the finish line. And that is so incredibly important, because when you are juggling so much, if you don't have a clear idea of when that juggling is going to be over, it can be really easy to hit a hard spot and just say, I'm giving up. But when you hit that hard spot and you can see, okay, if I can get through this 8-week block, and then I've got 2 more 8-week blocks, I can do it. That was enormous. And then the case management piece, again, I cannot stress this enough. In addition to being that go-to person to get questions resolved and issues resolved, Janet really hit the nail on the head with helping. The role of the staff associated with this program is to really help working adult student parents make that transition from, I don't know if I'm a college student, to bolstering their confidence, reassuring them when they're feeling like they're struggling, giving them support, giving them flexibility, and saying, you know what? Oh my gosh, what you're dealing with in your life right now, it sounds like you might need a break. It sounds like you might need to take this 8-week block off. And but we'll get you right back on track. We know that this is a temporary situation. It's going to resolve, and we'll get you back in the program. And then following up and making sure that they really did re-register for the upcoming block. And if they don't, on the phone with them saying, hey, is that situation still ongoing, or has it resolved? Let's get you back in school. So it's the case manager ends up being cheerleader, coach, mom, best friend, problem solver, quasi-therapist, everything. You become everything.
Oh, Buffy. So this is how I know I'm a nerd, because you just said, like, okay, you're an institution, you're trying to get, students in your region to come back to earn a first credential, to earn the next credential, upskill, whatever they need. And you hear from people, well, I have kids, I have to, and I think most, it's like the hammer and nail problem. Oh, child, you need to figure out something to do with your kids. We'll provide you childcare. And instead, you all took a step back from that, did some more listening, talk to people, actually just talk to people instead of just looking at survey data or whatever it is, and found out, oh, wait a minute. We don't have to solve the childcare problem. We just need to give them predictability in their scheduling. And this is how I know I'm a nerd, because I love looking at those kind of common challenges we're facing and saying, what is it that we're actually needing to solve here? And what is our role as an institution in solving that? The reality is that, I don't know. I don't know if every institution should have a child care center. And I think in some communities that is going to be right, but I think in other communities that's probably the not right approach. There's probably a ton of other daycare options, or an opportunity to invest in those. And instead, the institution's role can be saying, how do we change ourselves and our current practice and policies to make it a more hospitable and successful environment for our students? And, of course, I heard you say, really big key things. There's leadership in place. There are resources on the financial and human side of things. To your point, these are dedicated, case managers, student success facilitators. That part of their job is to be that empathetic human connection, as well as helping them navigate the institution. And of course, the culture change element, which is to say, there's probably a lot of legwork that we're skimming over here that has to happen with, various staff, with faculty, with leadership, whether it's about compressed courses, or a new way of case management, or protecting your case managers to say, no, this is really for the ACE program. You can't have them, other department, all those kinds of things. And I think that's just a really great framework that you've laid out. It takes all of those pieces. I want to also just say that I'm sure, you all are always focused on continuous improvement. And, what are the challenges on the horizon? What are the things that you're trying to tackle today and tomorrow to continue, the success that you've experienced so far?
Some of our current challenges right now are we've added a couple more pathways. So we're working to try to incorporate the classes we already have into the new pathways, but as we also have to incorporate some of the core classes for these new pathways. So getting new instructors to agree to teach courses in an 8-week format to fit these new pathways. And then also just growing the program in general, because we don't really have a lot of marketing. Most of our marketing is through students. We have students who, their children are now joining our program, their spouses are now growing our program. So marketing is a big thing, because the hardest step is that first step of having those students come to and enroll at Shasta College. And so being able to, I go through applications on a weekly basis, trying to look for those students. So there is a lot of legwork that we have to do to be able to get these students, because again, it comes back to that confidence piece where students sometimes they're on that border where they just need that extra little push to say, yes, you can do it. So keeping the classes we have online, some of the courses, with changing curriculum, maybe are fading out, so are being replaced. There's new requirements being added by some of our CSUs and our UCs, so we also have to incorporate those. And sometimes maybe we just don't have the faculty. With our staff being a little limited right now because we've just started to bloom, so we have to go, through adding more staff. But it's just a little bit of everything. So we kind of just try to juggle and try to make sure that the current students that we have are being taken care of 100%, that we are there to serve them 100%. But at the same time, we want to be able to reach other students and just kind of, give them that extra push to say, hey, come to see us. We will definitely help you. We'll be there for you. And then get those faculty to join, not necessarily, I don't want to say, sip the juice or, buy into our program. Because one thing about our program is we want faculty, we want students that want to be part of ACE, that want to be, part of what we have to offer. We don't want to have students just in the program just because we offer accelerated classes. That's not what we want students. We want them to be willing to be in the program because we've found that's how they better succeed. A student that comes willingly into the program has a better opportunity and a better chance of actually graduating, finishing the program than somebody who's just taking the classes for taking the classes. And that's the same can be said for our faculty, is they need to be wanting to be part of our program. And sometimes we go through, is this a good fit? Is this not a good fit? And sometimes it's not a good fit. So finding that just the perfect match between faculty, between students, between staff, because it's a big family for us. We know a lot. I mean, I can name all 200 of my students by name. I can go down a class roster and pick out exactly who my students are. It's just that's how much we get involved with these students. They are our family, at least, part of my family. And so the biggest challenge is finding faculty, staff, and students that really want to be and partake in the program and fully engulf, everything we have to offer them.
Yeah, Jen, what I love about what you just said is that, we work with a lot of places who say we need people to buy into this idea. And what I try to help people think about and do is to say there's another level past buy-in, and it's called belief. And I think that's what you're saying here is that, you don't want people to buy in. You want people to believe, mm-hmm. and you want people to believe in the program, either in themselves, that they can accomplish the program because they're going to be supported and because this is a program designed for them. And on the faculty and staff side, that to believe that this is an important program, to believe in the students that they can be successful, and to believe in their role in that. I think that's just such a really, really important point. You all have given us so much to think about and consider today. There's lots of really great advice for students and for institutions and faculty. I really can't thank you both enough. Buffy Tanner, Janet Hubbard, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a little bit about the ACE program. I really do appreciate it. As we leave today's conversation, it's clear to me that we all must think more intentionally about student parents. And a good starting place for us is to know who our student parents are in their true self, knowing their whole self in the context of our education and training programs. As President Shauna Jackson once told us on a prior episode, we as an institution and as colleges and universities need to love the students we have, not the ones we wish we had. And that starts by starting to know your own data, by collecting that data, and also by listening to students directly to understand their lived experiences and find new solutions to being able to support them. We heard that comprehensive solutions matter a great deal, Providing daycare isn't enough. We have to have predictable schedules. We have to have case management. We have to have financial supports. We have to have an entire suite of front and back office supports to make sure that our education and training programs are truly working for student parents. And more to the point, as Nicole Lynn Lewis reminded us, the kinds of supports that we can put in place that help parenting students will also help other adults that are facing similar challenges, even if their life circumstances are slightly different. So if you want to make a change and support student parents a little bit better at your own institution or in your own community, I encourage you to follow the lead of the guests that we had on today's show. Check out the resources that we have in the show notes and start acting today by learning a little bit more about what your students are, what the challenges are, and how you might be able to better support them. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much to our guests, Nicole Lynn Lewis, Buffy Tanner, and Janet Hubbard. Be sure to check out their work and other great resources, again, that we've included in the show notes. There's a lot of good material there, so folks, please do take a look at that. A special thank you today goes out to Rachel Boljowski, a photojournalist and a good friend who did some really excellent reporting on today's students out in California. Rachel was kind enough to share some of her thoughts and reporting with me that helped kind of craft today's episode. Oh, and before I go, our next episode is not only our 30th episode, but also marks our 3rd anniversary. It's a really big achievement, if you don't mind me saying so. So I hope you join us for our show next month and many more in the years to come. Making the show work takes an entire team. Our show is produced by Jacob Mann, John Strauss, Catherine Weedle, and me, Dakota Policki, with support from Matthew Jenkins, Mark Allen, and the team at Site Strategics. Well Done Marketing supports the promotion of our show, and Deborah Humphreys and Kevin Corcoran provide leadership for Lumina's strategic engagement efforts. As always, if you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe and rate our show wherever you're listening or watching today. If you have a comment or an idea for a future show, please reach us at luminafoundation.org or reach me on Twitter at Dakota Policki. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time.